Without any further ado, coming to tonight's session on product manager as value proposition. Let me give an introduction to our eminent and distinguished speaker of tonight, Archun Mehta. Archun is a highly skilled, diligent product leader who shines with his creative solutions for anything that comes his way. Currently, he is working as a product leader for Amazon. He started his career working for Motorola Mobility in software, engineering, and program management roles. From there, he went on to be an engineer manager with Google for 2 years before returning to Motorola Mobility as director of product management. Archun has an impressive collection of master degrees, a Master of Engineering and Computer Sciences from Illinois Institute of Technology, a Master of Science in Information System Project Management from DePaul University, and a Master of Product Design and Development Management from Northwestern University. A very warm welcome to you, Archun. We're thrilled to have you here with us tonight. Handing the session over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shama. Thank you for those kind words. I'm going to start my screen share.
Sure.
And we can get this kicked off. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Archun, we can see your screen.
Okay, very good. Hello, good morning, good evening, namaste. I'm Archun Mehta, and I'm going to take you through the journey of product manager. Some bookkeeping items here. The document is confidential, so please use it very carefully. Let me start by talking about myself. A quick background: I've been a product guy on the engineering side, working on product definition, delivery for Motorola products for past 19 years. I moved to the Bay Area 3 years back. As Samash said, right, masters as they are, third time is really the charm. Going back to school, learning, being curious of what's happening in the real and the academic world made me go back to school 3 times. I did my bachelor's from Maharaja Sayajirao University from Baroda, India. Currently, I'm with Amazon and previously with Motorola, Lenovo, Google, wore various hats from developer, tester, engineering manager, program manager, product manager, you name it. Now some fun, exciting facts about myself. Yes, acting has been passion from a young age, and I'd always say that whatever you want to do, you should do to express, not to impress yourself. And yes, I'm listed on IMDb, did some indie movies in the past. I also host a weekly cricket show on a West Indian media channel, Cricket 360, that broadcasts live in the Caribbean islands on Friday. So, by the way, where is everybody from? So, is there, please do write in the comment section below. So, yeah, there's your poll right there. So just would be good to get where everybody is coming from. Awesome. Looks like a lot of team from South India. Excellent. Quite an IT hub. North, great. Beautiful. There you go. We have a winner here. South, awesome. Looks from all over the place. Thank you. Thanks a lot. All right. Okay. Continuing. So right now I'm launching exciting products with Amazon Fire TV. Prior to my Fire TV projects at Amazon, I was the product head leading a private label brand for Amazon, Tenor. which dealt with Android smartphones, IoT devices, trackers, working in close partnership with world-leading original device manufacturers called Wintech, Longcheer, Foxconn, to incubate, design, and execute on end-to-end projects and launch new products in the Amazon India market. We were a startup team within the big Amazon, 7 to 8 guys, building a brand tenor in Amazon India, where we launched a few smartphones, IoT devices, and trackers, and as well as Bluetooth speakers. This is where my major part of the journey was prior to Amazon. So as a product manager, when you are leading teams without managing people, specifically for the Moto Z franchise, where I was responsible for product management, including definition, authoring PRD, product requirements documents, defining, owning key KPIs, comparative analysis. I've been a product manager for the Moto Z product line, owning product life cycle, cost, benefit trade-offs, creating long-term value for the Moto Mods ecosystem. Prior to that, I was the launch program management lead at Motorola. We call it product integration lead, where I launched products at Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile carriers, which included 5 to 6 different products: Moto X, Droid Razr, Droid Razr HD, where we took these phones to carrier labs, beta development, and eventually launching it. So as I grew from an engineer to a program manager to a director at Moto, Lenovo, Google, and now a leader at Amazon, there are some Uber lessons and best practices I learned during this time, based on my success and failures, and a little bit of self-reflection and self-awareness about situation. And I'd like to share that with you today. So what I'd like to say is that product manager to a team is very similar to a value proposition of a product. Product manager is, as I said, is very similar, as you can see on the chart. The difference between good and status quo owners is to know the difference between what's good from bad and what's done from not enough. Value proposition tells prospects why do businesses would do with the competitors and make benefit of your products or services crystal clear from the outset. There is no buzzwords, there is no meaningless slogan, blend of the brand, product experience. Similar to a product manager, as this Venn diagram shows, it's a blend of tech, UX, and business. And simply stated, the job of a product manager is to discover product that is valuable, usable, and feasible. So when I give off an example of a product as to what my best product is, I call it's a toothbrush, because it's used every day. It does its job, what it's supposed to do, and we keep on reusing the product again and again. Let's take the first few seconds here. Think about your favorite aspects of being a product manager. Let me know in the comment section as well what you are aspiring and why you are aspiring to be the product manager. Let me know. Here is what I have learned. Let's start with the key attributes and what I have seen and I look for in a product manager. As an organizational leader, you are able to hire the best and execute them to make better than the best. You can file bugs, drive the product development process, essentially get shit done. You are able to differentiate good from bad and done from not enough, anticipate how user needs can be solved, worry about user perceptions. You are a great demoer and a truth teller. You have to understand about the technology innovation importance and deeply care about P&L. The key attributes that I trust that would make the best of program managers is The product managers are leaders and owners. They think long term and don't sacrifice value for short term gains. They move beyond just my family. They think on behalf of the company. And ever heard of that? It's not my job. You have to stay connected, dive deep into the details, be a QA, audit frequently, and there is no issue that is too small. So there are some expectations when you come in as a product manager. Your job at the end of it is to deliver awesomeness. You are at the center of the innovation. So communicate throughout the company effectively. Look at the TRP, how your product is used, identify the missing links, focus on details, identify them, track them, and then close them. Staying ahead of the trends. You own, as a product manager, every aspect of the product development life cycle. So it's a mindset. You have to think it that way. um, you are truly the SME, right? So your biggest value will be found in those key areas. So that is some of the things that are expected from you, being a good, or that differentiates good from the great product managers. um, I've created a list in at least my head, and now it's in front of you, of um, how do you stay effective with this, right? To me, simply stated, effectiveness is a degree to which something is successful in producing the desired result, which is success. The difference between success and status quo product owners is the work ethic they imbibed every day. I created the 6 simple rules, for me, and I think they are generally useful. Number one is readiness. Setting up is a massive waste of time. How many times you're in a meeting and the first 10 minutes is spent on setting up a projector, cable, dialing a phone number. He who is not ready today is going to be less prepared for tomorrow. Seeing is believing. So show your work with logical arguments. You don't want to encounter, I find your lack of logic disturbing in a board meeting or a technology review with senior leadership. Uh, Always have it time bound. Why are we meeting? If you have a team of 100 people on a phone call, less gets accomplished. So I generally tend to have a rule of 7 to 8 members. Don't meet because meetings are practical alternative to work. Create your ranked prioritized list. You don't need to work faster or eliminate gaps in productivity to make better use of time. You just need to spend time on right things. uh, Clarity. So this is one of the key things that I learned coming into Amazon is the way of weighing document against PowerPoint slides. I have always preferred and authored documents. Document clearly shows the best choice in editing, making changes, and documents are hard to write. They have sentences, they have paragraphs, they have words, and it's just it just brings that clarity of mind when you are writing a document versus PowerPoint. And take initiative, right? Reach across the aisle. Whether it is Congress, BJP, Democrats, Republicans, engineering, sales, supply chain. We cannot accomplish great things if we don't work together, reaching across the aisle. So these are some of the tidbits that I found to be useful and imbibed in everyday work. Let's shift some gears into system level design thinking. As the product delivery owner, you are not responsible to own, but to drive design, development, and simultaneous launch of product in global market. Um, for that, you just are looking for a toolkit of things, not only a toolkit of things, but also human-centered approach. And system-level design thinking is a methodology where the owner accounts for all the components when you are doing system design. Actually, when I was doing my master's, I found this book to be fairly useful. It's the Universal Methods of Design by Billa Martin and Bruce Hannington. I'll share the link here as well. I found it to be very useful. It talks about 100 different ways of universal methods of design, and I've imbibed a few in my daily product development usage. So coming back, for example, the embedded control of a design jet engine, a system guy has to think about the dynamics of the engine, the sensors, the actuators, the measure, and interact with the input-output devices for the sensors, the communication over bus, the control logic, how the ecosystem fits in, what is the business aspects of things. So those are some of the key things as a system level design thinker you need to be thinking about. The term design thinking itself refers to applying designer sensibility to methods and problem solving, no matter what the problem is, right? So Ideos Tim Brown had explained that it's not a substitute for art and craft, but it's actually a methodology for innovation and enablement. So empathize thinking through the customer, defining end-to-end system solution, thinking through the new business model, create a platform through non-linear and iterative process that team use to understand users, challenge assumptions, redefine problems, creating solutions with prototype and test. So some of the examples are, some of the system thinkers, what they have taught us is system is a product and interaction. It's not interaction of its parts. It's how it goes. It's like interaction with hardware and software. It's not just a sum of the parts. So cars or human bodies, you can take the car apart as long and it's no longer a car, and its lots is essential functions. So it's the interaction within the components. For me, for consumer electronics background, it's always been the hardware software interaction. Let's deep dive here a little bit. People use computing today with primarily accessing, sharing information for productivity and entertainment. It's really hard to believe that computing is still in infancy, where we were able to combine the desktop and the mobile phone with touch UI about 13 years ago. Seamless connectivity is combined with cloud computing. New form factors are being redefined, and this entirely changes the way we interact with world forever. Now with the devices like what we have here with Alexa, Google Home, you can imagine, waking up to the morning, talking about the weather, the traffic, the flight information, your social network, and giving context to your smart objects at home, right? But now think about the new normal is the smart wall on your bedroom, or it'll detect your presence. It'll wake you up to the destination and get you to the destination of your time in a driverless car, and possibly with the traffic, it could even go in the air from one place to another place. So record your favorite TV shows. This is not even a couple of years away. This is just a few months away, given as a new normal, if not years, a couple of years down the road. So To start with the basic fundamental question, why do we see the breakthrough products once every several years, right? Why are there handful of companies just successful in jumping the curves and versus just the incremental improvements? I'd like to share two reasons for that. One is that not too many people are with the skill set of system level design thinking, and frankly our structures are outdated. We have functional teams to follow process and work in silos, while somebody from the authority that would come up with a vision, innovative ideas, and they would try to pull together required pieces. And this can be a CEO, a founder, a product manager, an industrial engineer. This creates huge opportunity for the people in this room who are passionate about building great products and widen your skill set. So just wanted to talk about the unique design-centered approach for product development, where you can create breakthrough products. And this is industrial design, UX design, visual design, experience design are some of the examples. And as I said, a great book to look for in terms of universal methods of design. Closing in a simple example, right? Um, of bulb uh, versus a Philips Hue bulb as an example, where hardware and software comes together to deliver end-to-end product. By the way, I do see some raised hands, and maybe we can take questions at the end, Shama and Pravita, or if you want to, that would be the best thing. Or if you want to just stop me in the middle, just let me know so that we
That's
can.
all right, Arjun. We'll take the questions at the end.
Okay, great. Thank you. Perfect. So yeah, going through an example here, the traditional girls, gives a slide, hasn't changed for years. The pain point is it glows whether or not you need it, whether you are not around, or whether you need to switch or you need to go to the switch and turn it off. What smart bulb did is it's good looking, it saves energy, saves cost, and thanks to the Internet of Things, you can turn around in specific timelines, with connectivity and smartphone, which is your system level design thinking. So uh, poll to the team here, the audience, as to how many of you guys use uh, Ola or Uber or taxi, or just have your own car to drive around. Interesting. Yeah, Uber and your own. Yeah, that's what I would expect as well. Um, okay, very cool. I mean, yeah, I mean there is. That's essentially what I would expect, right? I also take Uber. I mean, think about that example, right? A good system level design tool that provides multiple level of abstraction, intuitive integration of hardware and software. The examples of Airbnb and Uber, have disrupted taxes and lodging, right? These are the long-standing categories that have been disrupted by newcomers that think differently without and think about delivering what is important to the consumer. The new solutions must be purpose driven, and to me it should be highly focused on that single use case. Simple, no pairing, no syncing, and multi-generational, forward as well as back. So I think it's disrupt. These type of examples are disrupting status quo. Just very excited in this space to be. And the world of mobile, which is near and dear to my heart, right? From 96 to 2007, it was wireless phone innovation, which was meaningful and frequent. And then after that, what we saw was, display size changes. There's a megapixel added here or there. This the you have few megapixels here or there every year. And it's like just another can opener with a Swiss knife army with very little added benefit. So when I come to think about it, I think about Moto Mods, where I was the product manager. And what we realized with this was that you are limited by the device or the hardware that in your hands. You are limited by the display of it. You are limited by the camera megapixels you have. You are limited by the speaker. So what we came up with Moto Mods was just an attachment where you can turn your phone into a boom box by adding 3-watt speaker, or a 5x zoom camera. So instead of having those incremental improvements, you can turn the hardware that in your hand, turn into something that's really big and meaningful for you. So the Uber point that I'd like to say is, think big, think system, don't keep calm, and keep innovating. uh, but after you get all this requirements, right? You have gotten your value proposition, your key selling points, your target consumer profile, product strategy, competitive assessment, go to market plan, launch cadence. What about product execution? uh, Execution is 70% of your program. Yes, definitely you need design definition, but the key is execution. As the product delivery owner, you are responsible to drive design, development, and simultaneously launch the product in global market. This is an eye chart of my product development process. Another good book for product design and development. It's by Ulrich and Appinger. Was useful in my masters. It was, as I said, it was good to kind of correlate what I do in my professional work life, and when going to school, how they map. And there is a congruence, there is a correlation. So in this case, we start with concept exit, with business case and product plan developed, and kick off the plan of record exit with your PRD release, your system design release, your components are locked. And the product development lifecycle that I'm going through is the consumer electronic product lifecycle, which what I've had experience in, and I've also seen other companies follow very, very similar process. With tooling release, you get the mechanical design database ready for release. With P1, P2, P3, you get the prototype validation, the first, second, and third round of design validation. Your dog fooding, or beta trials with end-to-end consumer in mind. You go through carrier validation. If you have a carrier to go to their lab, you start ramp with limited shippable units. Then you do your run rate with your volume ready, and then have a post sale support in place with lessons learned as to what went good, what went bad, what are the highlights, what do you need to do to make it better. And that lessons learned phase has been one of the key phases for me, because it has always made scope and room for improvement for my next product. So um, what I wanted to share here were some key insights when I just started as into the original CDMA Razr phone that sold 100 million devices, one of the first ones to do that. So the three key insights for me for here is product management is closely linked with product performance. On the product like CDMA Razr, where we had daily input from senior leadership team, I had just moved from networks and was thrown in the world of chaos for the first 2 weeks. I was already late for my team my team deliverables on day one. But I started doing like little things, tracking Jiras, managing core teams, doing QA testing. The best way is to jump in and let your instincts take over, is what I felt at the time. It using the product management methodology increases the likelihood of high performing products. So MS Project View versus some tools also helped me versus spreadsheets. And uh, all the product needs improvement. To pick a product, it'll always need improvement, and you should always do postmortems. Once you are done, as you can always improve. So as I say, a pessimist says glass half empty, optimist is glass half full, but a project or a product manager sees a glass that is twice as big as it needs to be. And wanted to give an example of FUPAN analysis, postmortem analysis. You start with the goal of the product, and then you have the actual results. Define different milestones. What were the highlights? What were the lowlights of the program? And I'd like to leave you with this, right? When you identify the key learnings, you talk about what are the key things that you accomplish. So in this case, when we were doing the postmortem, we identified that whenever you do a product release, whenever you deliver a cell phone, there is always a refresh that you have to do, and we were not doing that before. There is always a think about we always have to plan for cost resources versus just the ad hoc timing, and a strong look ahead for ramping up schedules and cross-functional communication is a key, and that drove some of the better products that we were able to realize later on during the product roadmaps and product development for future products. But as I said, I'd like you to leave with this: is the continuous development isn't about the things that you do well, but it is about getting the things that get in front of you in the way of your work. Root causing for those highlights and lowlights and key insights has really helped me. This sort of is a template and a stepping stone towards that. And Vince Lombardi, who is a very famous American football coach here, he says, perfection is not attainable, and but if we chase perfection, we can chase excellence. And also, there's a web series called Family Man, where he says, "Don't be a minimal man." And I think what he means by is, if you cannot attain perfection, at least try to catch excellence. So with that, what I'd like to say is thank you, Dhanyavad. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time. And I'm ready for questions.
Thank you, Arjun, for delivering a brilliant session. Really great and thought-provoking insights. As you can see in the Q&A window, we already have questions lined up for you. So let's begin with the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first question, Arjun, is from Bhavana. How do you decide when to integrate with others and when to build in-house?
So in terms of how do you decide to so you have to come up with the cost benefit analysis, right? So in terms of when I had this particular opportunity, you come up with cost benefit analysis. So what that cost benefit analysis entails, right? So the first thing is, of course, the cost piece. Second is where does your expertise lie? What is your core competency? So and then you from when I'm delivering a mobile product, you divide it into hardware as well as software. So in hardware you have electrical, mechanical, design. Are you delivering a core competency that would leverage innovation and deliver a product that is at the end of the day that is going to be delight to the customers, and customer are going to keep coming back, would have the retention? Or is it something that is a cookie cutter thing, which is it's a mass it's a mass product, and you can let go of your design to a third party house, and drive drive for cost and give that cost benefit to the consumer. So having a consumer mindset and coming up with that table and those cost benefit analysis drives the decision of whether you do in-house or you do it with third party.
Great. I hope that answers your question, Bhavana. Please let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Moving on to the next question. This is from Nikhil. Can a product manager be called as the intersection of desirability, feasibility, and viability, as learning the desirability of users can create value proposition?
This is a really good one. Yeah, I think what I meant by the fact that his intersection with the with desirability, valuability, and feasibility. It's indeed that puts my point home, or drives my point home, is the whole aspect of this product manager is you have to know the difference between what is good from bad and what is done from not enough, and that feasibility aspects and the desirability aspects comes from that. And um, uh, the other key aspect is in terms of when you are thinking in terms of uh, P&L, that is the feasibility aspect. So for sure, that is a good analogy that you brought up here.
Thank you, Nikhil, for that question. So the next question is from Dr. Satish. Product managers' thinking should be divergent or convergent. Which one do you prefer? Therefore, the judgment is one of the important concepts of design thinking. When exactly we defer the judgment?
Yeah, thank you for that question, doctor. So it is not about it's always divergent in the beginning, and then it converges as you drive down your product, or decide on your product. If you keep it open ended, at the end of it, the product needs to reach the consumer, and you will always have a product that is sort of open-ended. So from a design thinking process, you get all this divergent ideas, then converge into the MVP, and then deliver the product from that perspective. And I apologize, I didn't what was the second question?
The second part to that question was, defer the judgment is one of the important concepts of design thinking. When exactly we defer the judgment?
Yeah, prioritizing is the key, right? So you have to know what you are solving for. The important thing is not the solution. The important thing is about asking the question what the problem is, and what is the problem that you are solving for your specific customer, right? And when you talk about the customer, you also talk about, are you talking about your population as 7 billion or 1.3 billion, or you're talking about those specific top 1% of the users that you are hitting the bullseye into. So uh, as when you find the problem that you are solving for your customers, that is the razor focused thinking, and that is when you should say that this is my MVP, this is the minimal viable product, minimum lovable product that my consumers and customers are going to love. That's what I'm building, that's what I will go ahead and build it. So that's when you need to say, this is good, and this is enough, versus something that is not done. And prioritization is not easy. That is the key and the most challenging aspect of a product manager. Hope that
Right.
answers the question.
Yes, I hope that. And our audience, for your questions, please, if you have any comments, please post them in the chat window so we'll also know your thoughts on this. Another note is that if you want to ask your questions directly to our speaker, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you so you can have a live discussion with Achin. The next question is from Vatsalya Jain. What's the role of a product manager in building the disruptive concept you spoke about? Innovation can be a prerogative for anyone in the team.
Absolutely. Innovation can come from an engineer, a product manager. It can come from top down. It can come from bottom up. In terms, there is no template or formula for building innovative products, right? Otherwise, if there was one, everybody would be building an innovative product. I think the key is, are you asking the right question? Are you solving the right problem? And all of the things are important, right from your right from your customers, right from your value proposition, right from are you focused enough to solve for your specific customer? And it is also about mindsets. It's also about not working in silos. It's also working, reaching across the aisle. It's also about working in congruence with hardware and software. So if you keep on innovating in terms of incrementally, where you are going to do 16 megapixel today, 20 tomorrow, 24 later, 48, 96. Yes, I mean, that has its own technical challenges, but these are some of the incremental value additions. But if you're because of this 96 megapixel, now you are able to solve those minute particles that are in the air, and somehow you're able to reflect that hey, with this particles there is a more chance of having some sort of a disease that's going to cause in the air. Then those are the type of innovations that you need to be thinking around. So asking the right problem, and asking or looking for the right problem versus the right answer would be the way to go for it.
Great. I hope Achal this answer your questions. And moving on to the next one here. This is from Rashmi. Altering the design in case of software product can be less disruptive as compared that of hardware product. With regards to that, how do you apply MVP concept in case of hardware product?
Software can be, yes, software is iterative. in terms of applying for a particular product, and you can have the minimum MVP all the time, and you can do release after release after release from that perspective. On the hardware side, from an MVP perspective, you're more or less set in terms of hardware when you're talking about MVP, because you have to go through product life cycle, and you have to improve on you have to iterate and improve on the on fine tuning and um, and making sure that the experience desired at the end of the hardware software is magical, is awesome. So it's not about you have a 10 megapixel camera in the front, and then you can add 2 megapixel along with the 10 megapixel and make a completely different value proposition. It comes back again to the question: are you solving it for the right reason? Are you solving it for what is your customer focus? Is your customer focus 1.3 billion people, or your customer focus are those avid camera users or smartphone users that takes that does bouquet effects and are professional photographers and likes to take portrait pictures? So you really have to solve for the customers that you are going to go after, which is why it is really important to know your customer. Is he going to spend those additional amount for your product? So your hardware MVP is sort of set from the beginning. It is really hard to do that without adding cost as well as schedule to it on its own. So I think it's the right approach is to make sure that you are really sure about the problem that you are solving. And if you are not solving that particular problem, it is better to go back to the drawing board and look for that MVP.
Thank you, Rashmi, for that interesting question. The next question is from Joseph. How do you decide between using different software programs?
How do you decide between using different software programs? So I've it's more, it was given to me in terms of when I was using things like Jira or Kanban or Confluence. We used various different software tools that help your productivity. So earlier we were doing schedules in spreadsheets, and then we moved to uh, uh, Microsoft project. The reason was we were missing out on dependencies. So and we were not able to track them unilaterally with spreadsheets, which was the norm. So we shifted out to Microsoft project. So again, these are the tools that are supposed to help you improve your productivity. So that would be your decision point to make a choice of your tool as to how it improves the productivity. Second, of course, is cost to the organization, and that is what you need to decide in terms of is this something that is going to improve my productivity? That is how you kind of calculate your ROI, your return on investment. If your productivity improves, what is your cost to the organization? So that's your decision point essentially to make what type of tools to use.
We'll take a few more questions, Archon, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So this next question is from Nidhi. Based on your experience, what is the biggest challenge for a product manager, or top 3 challenges?
I think top 3, the first biggest challenge is to say no to a idea or a product thought, or a feature. it's really hard to say no, and it's, I think, one of the key things to say for the product manager. For example, um, I remember that, we were doing a product, and the question was, there was a multimedia team who was doing some great camera feature development. They were doing some great artificial intelligence feature that would, based on the tone of your skin, it could detect your moods, and suggest various different activities for you to do, versus there was a simple feature that talked about, took a burst of pictures together, and then it would create, you can, touch and circle some things, and it would come to life with GIF and animation. So while the other one was, first with technology, it was great to see, it would be a nice feature to have. um, the decision was to go with the other one, where, the cost was less, the complexity was less, the time to market was faster, and it gave, some real customer benefit to the user. So that is what was like super hard and super challenging, was to say no to that particular uh, feature. So that's one of the hardest things. Couple of other things are, uh, you are essentially leading a team without any direct reports, right, as a product manager. So your ability to influence is one of the key aspects. And that is a supremely, it's a talent, as well as something that you can cultivate from. And the third thing is doing database decisions. um, you It is very important to have decisions done based on data. So those are the three things that I think I have used successfully for my products, and are generally useful from my perspective.
Okay, that was great. Thank you for sharing that, Archon. There is one question from a LinkedIn viewer, Rishit Shah. What is the difference between UX design and experience design? There's another question similar to that by Radhika. What is the difference between UX design versus visual design? So, if you could share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I shared this book. This is like a really useful book, guys. It's Universal Methods of Design. Just a quick one on UX design versus the experience design / visual design. So UX design is your flow charts, right? How each screen looks. And all my examples are from smartphone world, but you can apply it to any consumer electronics part. But so UX design are your essentially your screenshots, your flow. Experience design is how a consumer experiences it. Is it through touch? Is it through remote? How does the holistic experience comes to the user? And then the other one is with respect to with respect to, for example, the visual design, which is something that you can see and experience, or listen and experience. So UX is your combination of is like an umbrella, which is your experience design and the visual design, if you will.
Right. In view of the time constraints, we'll take this one last question, Arjun. This is from Bhavna
Okay.
again, but it's quite an interesting one. Does it make sense to have a public product roadmap that can be shared with prospect or clients when they ask what's coming next, especially in the case where you have a lot of competition from other vendors?
I have always found it very useful to run product roadmaps with the prospective clients. The reason is that the insights that we get from them. So it has to be like a two-way door, right? Where this is my roadmap, but you have to come back and tell us your consumer insights, what your clients or what your customers are going to go through. So whenever I had an opportunity to present roadmaps, we did present that with our customers like Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, our carrier partners. And in turn, what we learned from them was the key insights, which is it helps to solidify your your bullseye in terms of who is your right customer. Are you targeting your next product for that particular customer or not? So I think that is a very good question, and I've done that as part of my communication with and conversation with our partners as well as customers.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Arjun. And in view of the time constraints, audience, we will have to end the Q&A here. But thank you for your participation. And if you have any further question, I encourage you all to scan the QR code on the screen for an exclusive 30-minute session with industry practitioners like Arjun to help clear all your doubts on transitioning to a product manager role. Now, coming to the most exciting part of the session, Arjun, please help us pick the champion of curiosity, the winner of the Best Question Award. And the winner will get a free digital course from the Institute as promised. You can see the answered questions in the Q&A window, and I've kept the other questions open.
Yeah, I think the one question from the doctor was very interesting.
Okay. Dr. Satish, that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations, Dr. Satish, on winning the free digital course. We'll get in touch with you shortly with the reward. We have enjoyed having you with us, Arjun. It's been a complete pleasure. Please accept the certificate of appreciation as a small token from the Institute. The QR code on the certificate will take you to a dedicated Hall of Fame page that we have created for you that will hold the recording of this session. Please share it within your network, and we'll be sharing the webinar recording on our YouTube channel as well. We are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and amazing insights drawn from your experience in the industry. And I'm certain that our audience will definitely benefit from the methods you suggested and get ahead in their career. Thank you once again for joining us, Arjun.
Thank you.